Hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. I've arrived in Edale in the Peak District National Park here in England, just inside Derbyshire, and I'm heading up to a place called Hollins Cross, and from there I'm going to head along what's known as the Great Ridge further up towards Bak Tor. Now at Hollins Cross I turn left to go towards Bak Tor. If I were to turn right instead, I'd carry on along the Great Ridge up to Mam Tor. I'm not doing Mam Tor today. I'm going straight for Bak Tor, and then after Bak Tor there's a hill called Lewes Hill, and I'm going to try and walk up to Bak Tor, which I've never been to before, and Lewes Hill, which I've also never been to before, and then from there I can drop down into the village of Hope in Derbyshire and then get a train back into Sheffield from there, and then from there another train back to Birmingham. So for now, I'm heading up this path towards Hollins Cross. I realised I was in the full glare of the sun, and it's early May, so it's quite warm here now. So I've had to take off my tracksuit top, put on my sun hat, as you can see, my silly sun hat, and I've also covered myself in sun cream as well while I was there. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm in a decent position now to get on with this walk. I'm heading up a path which gets quite steep in a little while, but that will get me up to Hollins Cross, as I mentioned earlier. That's roughly halfway between Mam Tor and Bak Tor. I've walked up this path before up to Hollins Cross and turned right and headed up to Mam Tor previously, and then I walked back along the ridge almost as far as Bak Tor, but didn't actually go all the way up Bak Tor. So today the plan is to head up Bak Tor and over to Lewes Hill, and then from there drop into Hope in Derbyshire. Somewhere along the Great Ridge there's a couple of nice interesting compositions that I want to take while I'm up there. I shot a couple of compositions there previously and the light was amazing. Today we've got very, very blue skies and harsh sunlight, so the light is very different, but I think the compositions might be working just as well as they previously did, even in this light. So guys, I've just made it to, sorry, what was the name of it? Hollins Cross, that was it. So I just made it to Hollins Cross. There's a few people around, obviously up here, they're all walking the Great Ridge between Mam Tor and Bak Tor, and possibly Lewes Hill as well. So I've stopped here just for a second because firstly I wanted to catch my breath, and also because I know there's a couple of nice compositions here that I can take. I've got a shot down to my left towards Castleton, along Castleton Road. That road itself tends to hug the foot of Mam Tor, but it's now defunct essentially. Mam Tor is known as the Shimmering Mountain, although it's not really a mountain, but some of the ground and the muck and dirt built up around the hill, Mam Tor, tends to slide and slip every now and then, and as a result the light falls on that moving sand and mud, and basically makes it look as though the whole hill is shimmering. But because of that landslip, you've got now the Castleton Road, which is completely blocked off part of the way, so nobody can use it at all anymore. But there is a path that runs down along some of that road towards Castleton as well. Obviously I'm not taking that path today, but then on the opposite side of the Great Ridge there's the Edale Valley. I'm going to show you that now. And that's also a beautiful vista which I want to take a photo of. If I just quickly turn around now, you can see behind me that beautiful valley behind me. That's where I've just walked up the path towards Hollins Cross from Edale itself. So I think there's a shot there, and also that shot out towards Castleton, and then we're going to head up the hill and along the Great Ridge to Bak Tor. So guys, after quite an ungraceful attempt to touch the summit cairn there, I've made it to Bak Tor. Now, as I turn around, you can see in the distance behind me, that there is Lewes Hill, and that's where I'm headed to next. But I've stopped here now, partly to catch my breath after climbing Bak Tor, but also to take a few more photos. But it's lunchtime as well, and I've got a nice southern fried chicken wrap in my bag that I'm going to eat. And I'll have a bit of a drink as well, and then I'll head up to Lewes Hill. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get up there. Probably about 45 minutes maybe, possibly half an hour if I'm very, very quick. But having never been up there before, I've got no idea what the route is going to be like. I can see from here that the path is fairly clear and easy to climb, so it shouldn't be too bad. So I'm going to eat my lunch and take a few photos and then head up there. In the meantime, I want to quickly turn around and show you this behind me, the other side. Over in the distance there somewhere, I don't know how well you can see it, there is Kinder Scout. I went up there last year, probably about this time of year actually, in similar sort of conditions. And then later in the afternoon the conditions became a little bit overcast. But that was a beautiful walk up there, really enjoyed that. And again, I travelled to Edale and then walked from Edale up to Kinder Scout via Jacob's Ladder. But for now, like I say, I'm going to head up to Lewes Hill. There really was just one photo opportunity that stood out for me just there. Whilst I was having my lunch, I looked down into the valley in front of Edale and Kinder Scout and in that direction, and I spotted a barn or a farmhouse or something just in the middle of nowhere really, and I just felt that was a really interesting composition to shoot. So I got the camera out, handheld, 100 to 400mm lens at 200mm f/16, and I think it's about a 60th of a second or something like that.
Yeah, I need some.
So I'm heading further along now the ridge line towards Lewes Hill, and hopefully it won't take me too long to get there. But the ridge itself drops down a little bit and then starts to slope back upwards towards Lewes Hill, so this could be a very interesting walk. But let's have a go at it anyway. Well, that's Lewes Hill, entry conquered. I've just come down from the summit a little bit, not very far, just a few yards. I've spotted a really nice composition here looking back over towards the Great Ridge, which I've walked along, and I'm going to take a shot here now of that. In the image you'll see two bumps along that ridge line. The first bump, the nearest bump that you see, that is the path up to Bak Tor, where I've just come from, and then the second of those two bumps a little bit further on is a path just above Hollins Cross. So when you get to that second bump, you drop down about another 150 yards from there and you're at Hollins Cross again. So I hope that kind of gives you an idea as to where I am at the moment. I love the image, but as I take this shot now, I'm going to have to try and shield the camera a little bit with my hand from the sun, purely and simply because that sun is very strong at the minute and it's giving some very, very sharp and harsh details that I want to try and avoid. So what I'm doing here is just setting up the shot, holding my hand over the camera so that the sunlight doesn't give too much glare onto the photo. So I hope you like this image. After I've taken this, I'm going to head down to Hope. Guys, I stepped off the path earlier to take that last shot and stepped onto some marram grass, and I thought, well, this shouldn't be too much of a problem to stand on, until I actually stood on it and it felt very, very soft indeed. So I had to move away from there. Luckily, just a few steps further down the path, there was a spot where I could stand to take that shot. And actually, it looked a little bit better from that point instead. So I managed to capture that one. f/16, a 60th of a second. I'm focused on, I think, that first bump and the tree at the top of Bak Tor. I'm on a path now that leads down to Hope, I believe. So I hope. So I should be there probably in about half an hour or so, and then I can stop and maybe get a pint at the pub or something refreshing, and then get back on the train from Hope into Sheffield. So I don't know if there's going to be any more images. If there are, I'll tell you about them on the way down, but for now I'm just going to keep heading down towards Hope.